Hey.
I'm back. G'day guys, Chris here from Vo-Gus Prospecting. If you're new to the channel, a big warm welcome, and if you're an old moldy hat just like this one, welcome back to Season 2, Episode 3. Today, we're talking all about sluices. I want to give you the pros and cons of the three main types of sluices, and then we're going to go hit an area that I've been processing for the last little while and finish off the last of the gravel bar. In the first two episodes of Season 2, I ran you over the most basic fundamental equipment every gold prospector should know how to use, and I showed you how to apply that to both collect a lot of gold if you're just out there with nothing more than a pan and some basic hand tools, and how to sample soils so you can find areas that are worth processing. And this is a continuation of that last video. Once you've found a spot worth processing, you might need to step it up to a bit of equipment that can process more dirt for you. And that comes down to a sluice. There are three main types of river sluice, and all of them have their pros and cons. And these pros and cons will directly affect how you implement that tool on the field. I also wanted to just mention that you have to be on the right ground. Just because you can now move more dirt doesn't mean you're going to net more gold. You still have to do your test pans, which is what Episode 2 is about, and you have to identify if setting up a sluice is actually worth the extra effort. You have to put in a lot more work when you use a sluice than you do when you use just a pan, so you have to justify that work to gain balance. Generally speaking, if there's more than 10 to 15 pans of dirt in one spot, I'll set my sluice up. However, there's one other thing you want to take into consideration, and that is how far you have to hump your dirt. The spot that you're working is not necessarily the spot you're going to be able to set your sluice up next to. So you have to take into account that if you're walking 100 meters, it might cost you more energy than it would be just to pan your dirt out where it is. All of these things aside, the three main sluices we're talking about today are a traditional riffle sluice, we've got a mat sluice, and a fluid bed sluice. This episode is all about the fundamental pros and cons. The next episode is about how you actually use one of them on the creek, and we're also going to give you a demonstration today of just how I go about mining an area. First sluice we want to talk about is the riffle bar sluice. Now this sluice is basically the entry-level sluice that you'll see in most department stores and prospecting shops and any place like that. It utilizes similar technology to what the old timers were using. The only difference is ours are made out of aluminium and steel and rubber matting and things like that. And there's a few different variations on these. Some of the positives are that they are very cheap, so they're very affordable to pick up. They're quite common. You can even make them at home yourself for very little money and very little engineering experience. You can knock one of these up quite simply. They are pretty damn good at catching small to mid-sized gold and large gold as well, but they tend to lose a lot of the very fine stuff. So you're talking 100 mesh, 200 mesh gold will usually go out of these sluices simply because of the way they're designed and their capture systems with the carpets and miner's moss allowing that gold to fall through. You can do things like add in some of this V-mat rubber matting underneath this mat and up here, and that will help alleviate that problem somewhat, which is always good. Every sluice loses gold, you must be aware of that. So take into account that even though I say it loses gold, I'm not talking drastic things, it's just one of the downsides to having one of these types of sluices. One of the other downsides is that it does tend to give you more concentrates. The way it actually collects gold is sort of very barbaric. It works quite efficiently, but it's very brutal, so it collects a lot of heavy things. The advantage to that, however, is that if you are interested in gemstones, it will also collect them probably the most efficiently out of all of these sluices. So gemstones, this thing absolutely kicks everything else's butt. So price is awesome, it's good at catching gemstones, it's good at catching small to medium grain gold. The other thing I wanted to also point out with all of these sluices is that I prefer a shorter sluice. Now the reason will become clear in the next video when I explain it, but it basically means you don't need to have as much drop in the creek to set one of these up, and then you have more options of places to set them up. So this is the riffle sluice. To be honest, if you're just starting out, this is the way to go. This will teach you the fundamentals of sluicing, and you'll get the other ones just perfect when you do eventually upgrade to those. The next sluice we're talking about is a matte sluice. Now, what do I mean by a matte sluice? I mean a synthetic rubber matted sluice. So where this sluice over here had carpet in it and steel bars and whatnot, these are a form molded mat in them. This is one Dream Mat by Gold Rat here in Australia, but there's plenty of other types that are produced from companies such as Gold Hog that have different types of matting systems as well. So you will see a different version of these all over the world. Now, these mats specifically are fantastic. What I didn't mention about the last sluice is that you have to classify down with that sluice. If you run full material, so you just get a shovel out of the creek and dump it onto the mat, you're likely to get blockages and it just clogs up and it doesn't run very nicely. So you have to classify with that. The large versions of these, you don't need to classify either. You can just literally throw the dirt on, run it down, and it will capture the gold for you. The small version that I've got here does need a classification because the cells are considerably smaller than the larger ones, and you can run into problems if you don't classify with them. And generally speaking, classifying with a sluice is a very good idea because it actually allows all of the gold to come out of the clay and the nooks and crannies that are in the rocks. But these sluices have been designed with one thing in mind, and that is to capture every last skerrick of gold. Now, I can vouch that I've taken this sluice onto creeks that I have picked up very good gold before and found even more fine gold. I'm talking sub 200 mesh gold just lining those top few cells. And that's because these are designed with fluid dynamics in mind. This is the next generation. This is a scientific approach to mining. They're fantastic. Generally speaking, they're a mid-weight sluice. They usually got an aluminium body construction, and the matting systems that are in here, because they're made from rubber or a type of rubber, they are quite heavy sometimes if you get the larger ones. These small ones are perfect for backpacking. You can see it's only the 6-inch mini Gold Rat, and these things don't weigh bugger all. They're only a couple of like 1.6 kilograms, I think. It means that they're very, very portable. The price, you've got to step up in price. This sluice and that sluice cost exactly the same, but this is about half the size of that. So what you're actually getting is less overall sluice. It's far more efficient at catching that fine gold, so it kind of does make up for it in that pack, but you've got to fork out that little bit extra money. The other thing about the Dream Mat sluice is it gives you a handful of concentrates. I'm talking, this is the least amount of concentrates you're going to get out of all three of them. The riffle bar sluice gives you the most. You're probably going to come out with a quarter bucket worth of concentrates. This will give you maybe a handful or so worth of concentrates, and the fluid bed will give you somewhere between 2 and 3 handfuls worth of concentrates. The fluid bed is probably the second best at capturing gems. This, I've not noticed the gems landing in it so much because it does just reduce it down to the heaviest of the heavy things. Hi mate, how are you? Are you helping with the review? Yeah. You going on a run? Yeah? What are you going to tell the people? Nothing? It was your birthday the other day. He turned 3. Grizzly here helping me. We're going to talk about fluid bed sluices, and we're going to make it super quick. Fluid bed sluices are the next generation of sluices. This has been taken with a very scientific approach to it. With that scientific approach, however, you're going to pay through the nose. This is somewhere around 3 to 4 times the cost of one of them. They are very expensive, and they're only made by a couple of companies around the world. You can make one yourself out of aluminium. Steve has done that himself. It's a beautiful thing. So if you've got the engineering skills, the equipment, and the know-how, you could knock one of these up. Essentially, there's a catcher chamber just here, so all of your gold is caught in the last 4 inches, and you've got 2 different runs of water operating it. Up the back here, you can see a bottom chamber and a top chamber. Dirt goes on the top chamber. The running fast water stratifies the dirt, which means the heavies go to the bottom, the lights come to the top. It runs down the sluice run, hits that front box, the gold slides in and drops down into the capture box, and that's where it is stuck. All the large particles go over the top on the grizzly bars here and go off the end. The bottom chamber injects high pressure water into that chamber, which keeps everything agitated and stratified, which means that all the lights start floating back up to the top because that high pressure is bubbling it, and the fast water that's running across the top here rips that stuff off and keeps the gold at the bottom. Very clever, very, very efficient. These things you can shovel. I would say, and I've tested this in another video, that this is just as quick as a high banker when they're set up right. They are absolutely amazing. You don't need to classify because it's got grizzly bars on the front. A lot of people tell me that I should be classifying with it because they see me scraping rocks off the grizzly bars, but it's 10 times quicker to scrape those rocks off the grizzly bars than it is to classify in the first place. It will catch ultrafine flour, 100 mesh, 200 mesh, if you set it up a bit slower so you don't run it as hot. If you don't run it as hot, you'll easily pick that gold up. And what you'll end up with, though, is a little bit less efficiency. But they do require a hell of a lot more water to run. You need a good 4 or 5 inches at least of river depth and a lot of velocity in that river to make this run properly. Well, there you go, guys. That's the basic fundamentals of the 3 types of sluices. There's some of the pros and cons. Next episode, I'll show you how to run each individual one of these. But now it's time to go mine. Now I know there's going to be 1,000,001 questions that you're going to have about sluice setup. I'm going to cover all of them in the very next episode, so please hold tight for that. This is just a demonstration day. Now, this spot has been awesome to me. Let me show you around. It all started when Adventure Gold came down and he worked in there, and then I went over with the gold monster and found 2 little nuggets. We started working back this way and we found a run of ironstone running through these gravels here. You can actually see the run going through there. We test pan, and we started working in and around this bedrock. Now, a lot of this bedrock had pockets of gravel on it, and that's what we've been cleaning up. We've been coming through, grabbing the pockets of gravel up. You can see some of the screened mullock piles that we've got here, and then just running them through the little sluice there. Well, the last 2 bits of gravel that we've got are sitting just here. We want to work this plot of land in there. I'm reckoning there's probably 5 or 6 buckets. That's what we want to get through, which is about 120 litres worth of dirt. I'm using the gold rat today. Those cells capture ultrafine gold, and there is a lot of ultrafine gold on this creek. I'm not 100% sure how rich that section is going to be. It's on the upper side of this bedrock slope, and it might not have caught gold, but we're only going to find out by processing it. It's been very good to me so far. I've found 4 nuggets and about 4.5 grams worth of gold sitting on this bedrock. That's the last deposit. Let's get screening. I can't even begin to tell you how muggy it is out here. It is absolutely shocking. A couple of things I know people are going to probably be asking me. Wet classifying where you actually wash the rocks through your classifier, far more efficient. I just don't have the right classifier here with me to go and do that. Oh, you can hear how huffy puffy I am. Who needs fitness? I'm into fitness. Fitting this whole creek in my sluice. And the other thing is, this is why you run a bucket at a time. I don't like collecting 10 or 20 buckets at a time and then running all of them. If I collect 1 bucket, then all I do is I sit down and I spend 10 or 15 minutes feeding the sluice and just relaxing and letting my body recover. It's up to you. If you got more energy, you load up those buckets and you do it all at once, but I do not. I've taken about 3/4 of a bucket out of this area, and that's a quite large area. And you can see by classifying, I got rid of all of those rocks up there, and that's the efficiency side of it. Well, we're about to start processing this stuff. We've got a run of very fine gold just running up there. Biggest bit's probably just sitting back here, and a couple bits over here. I can see a couple of little bits in the mat there, so it bodes well for fine gold. Let's just hope that there are some bigger bits hiding in amongst it as well. When you're working areas like this, it's important to do it in a two-stage process. What I'm doing right now is stripping everything off to bedrock, but I'm not worrying about cleaning the bedrock to the end. I'm going to do one bucket where I scrape all of that off and get this spotless. As I worked over here, I found a really nice pocket of gravel hiding underneath a bit of bedrock that fractured straight off for me. So I reckon there's going to be some gold down there. And you can see that the actual ground rises back up just slightly where that bit of bedrock is there. So I reckon there might be a good bit of deposit just in here. Before I push too much further that way and take out a lot of soil and uncover a lot of bedrock, I'm going to clean this section up so it's pretty well spotless, and we'll get all those cracks and nooks and crannies broken up and the gold out of them. A little bit of time later and we've cleaned it up okay. I swept most of this down. I broke up some of the shattered bedrock that was there. Did the same sort of deal in here, a little bit more scrubbing to go, and that's going to allow us to work in here. Pretty confident that we got most of it. Ideally, at the end of something like this, you would wash all of this down into the lowest point and then yabby pump it up. That would be how you'd make sure you got every last skerrick of gold off that bedrock. I've run about 6 pans and a bucket and a half worth of dirt total. So that's a fair amount of dirt. There's about 5 pans worth of dirt in one of these buckets. And I've hit a stage now in this area where it's pure slop. I've got a lot of it off, but there's no way I can pick up all of that mud that's down the bottom. I'm going to fill this full of water and get some yabby pump action in there to get that mud off the bottom. Been maybe 40 minutes since I last turned on the camera, and I've done 23 or 24 pans worth of dirt, which equates to roughly, including the bucket at the start, roughly 100 litres, 120 litres, in around that, about what I guessed, which was really cool. Now, what we're going to do is the yabby pump. I just really wanted to quickly show you the mat. We've got a beautiful run of gold up the top here, absolutely spectacular. I don't know if you're going to be able to make that out, but lots of fine gold, so we know we're picking it up. But I've probably only cleaned that ground 90% of the way. Have a look at how much dirt is left sort of just caking that bedrock. We're going to use the bucket. We're going to fill this little area up, we're going to yabby pump it off, and then we're going to fill this little area up and yabby pump it off. That looks like a spectacular area to catch gold. If you get down this angle, you can see there's actually a wall of bedrock that rises up there, so I'm hoping there's going to be some good bits there. Well, that is just how much dirt was sitting on the bedrock that I could not pick up with a brush or a shovel, and that's why I'd say yabby pumps are so important. We'll get this cleaned up. I'm going to actually pan this out and just see what was sitting on the bedrock, and then we're going to find out what's in the sluice. Well, there you have it. We've got one good bit and about a dozen little smaller bits up there from a quarter pan's worth of dirt. So it was well worth yabby pumping off because we got that little bit of extra gold. We're going to tip that down the sluice, and then we're going to pick up that sluice and find out what's actually in it. I'm very excited. I don't think there's going to be overly much, not like what I got throughout the rest of it. I reckon there'll be a lot of flour gold. I'm banking on some amalgam because I found a lot of mercury in this area. But in total, if I can walk away with a quarter gram to a half gram for the little bit of dirt that I actually moved, I'll be quite happy. Look at the gold sitting in the top part there. I almost filled the T. And I can see gold in some of the cells down here. Again, this sluice is designed for the ultra fine, ultra small flower gold, and that's what we've got in this spot. So I'm reckoning there might be a fair amount of it underneath this gravel here. Well, there we have it. You can see it's only about one handful of dirt, maybe 2 handfuls, cupped hands, and it does not leave you with very much at all. Let's get this cleaned up. Whoa, I'll tell you what, those transitions make for good fine gold and rain. It's absolutely dumping down. I am going to get sopping wet before I get that completely cleaned out. So what I'm going to do is suck it up in my snuffer bottle, and then we're going to do the rest of this video at home. I'll do a weigh-in for you and a couple of other things. Right, for now, we've got to get out of this weather because I hear thunder. Well guys, that was a hell of a storm. I tell you what, it came out of absolutely nowhere. It belted the crap out of me for like 2 hours. I couldn't get back out on the creek. I couldn't do anything else. And then I had to go home. So here we are, it's the next day. I'm actually still in the process of cleaning up the gold because there's a ton of ultrafine sub 200 mesh gold sitting in a lot of very dense ironstone, and separating the two is quite tricky. But there are actually inventions that you can use, like cleanup sluice mats, and we can talk about that in the next episode. But what I wanted to talk to you about at the end of this video is the different types of sluices, and I hope that I've shown you a little bit more information that will allow you to buy the right sluice for you, the right sluice that fits your budget. You know, at the start, we've got a traditional riffle bar sluice, and those traditional riffle bar sluices are awesome. They will collect more gems for you. They're usually cost effective. They're very, very easy to modify yourself, or you could even build one at home. The downside is it does give you a lot of concentrate, so it does take a long time to actually clean up all of your gold, so there's nothing but gold left. And it's not so great at holding on to the ultra fine gold. Then you've got the matting systems that I used today, or not today, yesterday. The matting systems like Dream Mats and the Gold Hog mats, you know, they allow you to collect all of that fine gold, the sub 200, 300, 400 mesh, powder, mustard gold. All of that gold will be caught very, very easily, and you won't have to think about it at all. However, you do have to classify it down, especially if you're using the short, small-celled versions of those sluices, and that can take extra time and energy and whatnot. If you use one of their long ones, you don't have to classify, but then you need enough drop in the creek to get that sluice set up properly. This will be in the next video. So there's a little bit of a downside to it there, and it is a little bit more cost prohibitive compared to the other sluice. You're only left usually though with a handful of sluice concentrates, which means that you can clean up very, very quickly, unless you're like me and you've been super lazy. The last one's a fluid bed sluice. You know, you can process so much dirt with a fluid bed sluice. I'm talking you can process just as quickly as a high banker. You will forego the ability to catch a lot of the ultrafine gold if you run it hot and run it very quickly, which we'll talk about again in the next episode. But the processing power and the no need to classify are a huge advantage to it, and the clean outs are the quickest of any of the sluices. You just pick it up, dump it in a bucket, and you are done. Super simple, super easy, but the most expensive, and it loses that processing power if you want to set it up to catch that fine gold. So all of them have different benefits, all of them have different cons. At the end of the day, the best sluice is the one that's out on the creek with you and that you're using. I'll guarantee you that sluicing is the way to go if you've got to work more than about 10 pans worth of dirt, and a river sluice is free to run and usually recoup the amount of money that you've invested back into it very quickly. That's all I have for you today, guys. I wanted to say a massive thank you for watching my video. Remember that there is a special deal on Elita outdoor footwear for my channel. There is a promo code in the description below. Check out their website. They're really, really cool shoes and worth having. In the very next episode, we're going to talk about the application of these sluices. I'm going to take each individual sluice and show you how to set them up for maximum benefits, give you all the tips, tricks, and hacks so you don't have to go out in the creek and struggle with your new sluice. I hope you enjoyed this video. Remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Please remember to smash that little bell that will be down in the corner there somewhere, because that'll notify you when I upload my next video. It's great to be back. Peace, and I'm out. Wump. A lot of people don't know that boxers are like rabbits and they like to make nests, don't you, Grizz? You can tell the people that you like to make nests, there's nothing wrong with that.